Hey everybody, this is Leon, and today I'm going to show you the SRC feature of the XR Fragments specification. So let's go to the documentation. And by the way, I'm on localhost right now, but you can go to xrfragment.org and then you will get exactly the same as what you're seeing right now. So what is SRC? SRC is basically the 3D version of the iframe. In HTML you have an iframe tag and it allows you to load remote content into your current website. Well, in a similar way, the SRC here allows you to load not only remote content into your current scene, but you can also load internal content from your current scene into your current scene. So you can basically use the current scene as a database to instance and clone objects elsewhere as well. For example, if you have a button in your scene, you could basically clone that button by using an SRC on a different position. So very, very powerful stuff. And well, here you can basically see some example values. If you want to instance local content or internal objects, then you can use queries. Here you can see it's querying a cube from the current scene. And if you want to read more about queries, just enter the search and then go to queries. There's all kinds of operators and examples which you can in a video, so I will not go into that right now. And the other way of instancing content is by just using URLs. So for example, an image, or also for example intents in Android apps. You can there are specific URLs which basically trigger an Android app to load a certain URL, and that can also be used. I think it's the easiest if I just show you. So the first example is actually on xrfragment.org. If you scroll down, you will see a sandbox here. And let me see, I will go into full screen mode now. Here you can basically see the internal examples. So for example, here you see SRC #q is cube. So it's basically querying this cube here with NLNet Foundation, and it's instancing the cube here on the SRC. So, and in a similar way, this is sort of querying the whole scene actually without the sky and without the cube. So this is a very powerful way to reuse existing content in your scene. It's a very eco-friendly way of designing. And the other way of using SRC, I will show you. Let me go to this one here. So here I basically loaded the src.gltf example file. It's in the repository, so you can play with it. And yeah, if you just add this, you don't need to add the position, but if you just add this part to the sandbox, then you can load that file into the sandbox. Or optionally just use this button, load 3D asset, and then you can load it as well. So once it's loaded, you can see a remote SRC value here. Here you can see that it's lazy loading this other.gltf file. And this is a really cool way to render or preview remote content. So this allows you to create a huge network of files, worlds, even style sheets, because you could, in theory, just have a style sheet.gltf and put all your buttons, all your colors, etc. in there, and reference those when you're designing in another scene or file. So this is very powerful. This is a 3D SRC, and it's one node. And let me go back to the SRC. You have to serve these files with a certain MIME type. Luckily, all the web servers do this out of the box, so probably you don't have to worry about this. But this is an important thing, so that the XR fragment spec knows how to actually render something. Here you can see another example of an image which is a transparent PNG, and it's also loaded in the scene. So a very important aspect of the spec is scaling of these objects, because you want to be sure that whatever you're sort of importing has the appropriate size. Because, for example, this other GLTF here, it's also linked as an href, so let's just surf to it. So if we load this, we can see that actually in reality the dimensions and scale of this file is much bigger. So we would have a huge problem if we would have SRC'd an unscaled version of this other GLTF. So we can scale this in two ways. So the spec basically says that this scaling should happen accordingly to its placeholder object, or scaled relatively. Well, I will show you what that means, and let me just load up Blender, and then you will immediately see how this works. Nice. Okay, we have it loaded. Let's turn on the shading. Okay, so let me turn off the glass here so that we can really see what's happening here. So as you can see here, there are two placeholder objects. It's a cube and a sort of plane-like object. And this placeholder object is not shown in the actual scene here because it's a placeholder object. But this object decides what the scale will be of the SRC'd content. So this is one way of scaling, and in a similar way the plane here is also being used as a sort of canvas, so that the renderer knows, okay, this logo image file, I need to scale it accordingly to this plane. So this is a very easy way for designers to design with remote content. It's also a very useful way to sort of protect remote content from all kinds of modifications scale-wise, because in theory a remote file can change, its scale or size can change, and using these placeholder objects you are sure that it won't mess up your design. So if I click on this plane here and I go to custom properties, then here you can actually see the SRC value. Let me just copy paste this. So this is basically that file, and because it's served with the right MIME type, the XR fragment spec knows, okay, this is a PNG, I will render it as an image. And the same, so this is a 2D canvas basically, but this cube is a 3D canvas, so it will be scaled in a 3D way there. So here we can see, let me copy this URL. This URL is being loaded, the other.gltf. It imports all the objects minus the sky. So why minus the sky? Because we already have a sky here. And if we won't do that, then we would have some kind of double sky in our scene, which doesn't look very good. Okay, so this is, I think, very simple and very powerful, because in a similar way, you could put a theme in there. So and perhaps grab a button from there, put an href on there to decide what will happen if you click on it. So yeah, there's enormous simplicity in this spec, but also an incredible power from a design perspective. So I hope this helps. Let me quickly check the docs if I didn't forget anything. Yeah, this is basically it. Internal values and external values. The last thing what I want to show, I forgot, the other way of scaling. There's also a way to load objects in here by using a geometryless placeholder. So this cube is a geometry, the plane is a geometry, it has at least 2 or 3 vertices in space, but there's also something like an empty placeholder. Here in Blender it's called, it's in this category. So if I do plane axis, then you won't see an object, you will see this cross. So this object is not visible, it has no geometry, and if you put a SRC on this one, then do this SRC, and I will put, let's say, foo.org/theme.gltf. If I use it like this, then you might ask, how will it be scaled? Well, this is very easy. Then it will just use the scale properties of this empty objects. Even though it has no geometry, the scale properties will also be saved into the file. So this is another way of scaling. And this is basically called relative scaling. So if you go to the docs, you will see here, the relative scaling. If you really want to go deeper into it, just click this one. Here you will see the exact steps of both scaling method. The first, with the 3D placeholders, it's called bounding box scaling. Very simple. It's in every 3D framework. And the other one is basically what I just said. It's using the scale vector of the placeholder, this one. So these are basically the 2 ways of scaling. My suggestion is that you use this last type of scaling, this relative scaling, if you have full control over the size of the source files. For example, if you have control over a theme.gltf or stylesheet.gltf, then this is totally fine. You know what you will get. However, if it's a remote file, I would use the other type of scaling with the bounding box, because as I said, you want to be sure that your design is ready for the future and can handle any changes on these remote files as well. Okay, that's it. I hope you can see the simplicity and the power of this SRC feature, and I hope you will have a lot of fun with it. All right, cheers.